What happens when Hollywood royalty, a man who has built for decades of excellence on dignity, craft, and unwavering integrity, walks into a morning television studio expecting professionalism, only to find himself face to face with dismissive arrogance instead? What unfolds when one of the greatest actors of our generation discovers that even his legendary patience and grace have limits he never imagined? When 45 seconds of smug condescension collide with 40 years of earned respect, something has to give. Asterisk. What you're about to witness is the moment Michael Strahan learned the hardest lesson of his broadcasting career, the moment he discovered that not everyone will tolerate disrespect for the sake of ratings. The moment Denzel Washington, the two-time Academy Award winner and living legend whose name commands reverence, reached a breaking point so devastating, so controlled, and so final that it became the most talked-about walk-off in morning television history. This isn't a manufactured feud designed for clicks. This isn't scripted drama built to go viral. This is what happens when someone mistakes a good man's professionalism for weakness. When a host confuses stirring controversy with conducting journalism. When basic respect is sacrificed on the altar of shock value television. Asterisk. This is the 45 seconds that destroyed an interview, humiliated a host, and reminded America what real dignity looks like when it's pushed too far. Michael Strahan thought he was creating a memorable moment. And he did, just not in the way he intended. Because when Denzel Washington stands up, removes his microphone, and walks off your live set, you haven't created entertainment. You've revealed exactly who you are. And the cameras captured every devastating second. Asterisk. The studio lights glowed with warm intensity that morning on Good Morning America, creating the illusion of intimate conversation despite the dozens of crew members, multiple cameras, and millions of viewers at home. The set was arranged with precision, comfortable chairs angled just right, a decorative coffee table between host and guest, and the iconic GMA logo gleaming behind them. Everything looked perfect, controlled, exactly as producers had planned. Asterisk. Denzel Washington sat across from Michael Strahan in a navy suit that radiated effortless elegance, the kind that comes from decades under the spotlight. He appeared relaxed and open, his demeanor calm and gracious. He was there to discuss his latest film, a passion project he had nurtured for years, one rooted in themes of fathers and sons, forgiveness and reconciliation, the emotional terrain that often fuels his strongest work. It should have been an easy interview, warm, respectful, mutually beneficial. Asterisk. The audience buzzed with that electric energy that only true greatness inspires. Even the crew seemed more meticulous than usual, checking audio levels twice, adjusting cameras with uncommon precision. Everyone knew they were in the presence of earned excellence, the kind that transcends fame and becomes cultural legacy. Asterisk. Opposite Denzel sat Michael Strahan, wearing the confident smile of a man who had hosted hundreds of interviews. He held his notes loosely and projected the ease of someone who believed he knew exactly how to steer the moment. But beneath that polished exterior was something else, an edge, a glimmer of cockiness, a sense that he wasn't planning to keep things respectful today. Asterisk. The cameras rolled. The signal went live. Millions watched, expecting the usual morning show charm. Instead, what they saw within seconds would dominate headlines for weeks. Asterisk. Strahan began with what should have been a simple question softball. Harmless, routine. So, Denzel, you've got another movie coming out. Tell us what makes this one different from all the others. But the tone was wrong. Dismissive, bored. He emphasized another, as if already tired of the idea. Even viewers at home could feel the slight shift, subtle but unmistakable. Asterisk. Denzel smiled politely and began explaining his film with genuine passion. This story is very personal to me. It's about a father trying to reconnect with his son after years apart, exploring themes of forgiveness, and Strahan cut him off mid-sentence. Right? Right. So basically, another drama. You do a lot of those, don't you? Asterisk, the interruption hit the room like a slap. The audience shifted uncomfortably. The warmth evaporated. This wasn't banter, it was belittling. Denzel paused, his smile flattening just enough to signal that the insult had landed. His voice, still calm, carried a warning edge. I do films that mean something, he replied evenly. Films that tell important stories. Asterisk, Strahan leaned back with a smirk, the kind that says he's about to deliver what he thinks is a clever blow. Sure. But let me ask you something. Do you ever worry that maybe you're just doing the same thing over and over? I mean, how many serious movies can one guy make? And that's right, there was the moment everything changed. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop all at once. This wasn't a challenging question meant to spark a thoughtful exchange. It was a thinly veiled insult, dressed up as journalism, the kind of provocation hosts sometimes use when they confuse creating controversy with creating content. Denzel's jaw tightened, just slightly. But he kept his composure with the discipline of someone who has spent 40 years under the scrutiny of cameras and critics. Asterisk, I think storytelling is about connecting with people, he said. Voice steady, controlled. If the story matters, it's worth telling. Asterisk, Strahan waved a hand, interrupting him again. A gesture so dismissive it bordered on contempt. Okay, but let's be honest. When was the last time you did something actually fun? Something people actually want to watch? Asterisk, the disrespect was so blatant it stunned the room. Here sat Denzel Washington, two-time Academy Award winner, Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. The man behind Training Day, Malcolm X, Glory, and Fences, being spoken to as if his accomplishments were irrelevant, as if his career choices needed validation from someone whose fame came from morning television and a football field. Asterisk, Denzel inhaled slowly, deliberately, the kind of breath someone takes when they are deciding whether to respond with grace or with truth. People do want to watch meaningful cinema, he replied, a quiet strength sharpening the edges of his tone. That's why I do what I do. Asterisk, Strahan laughed, an actual laugh, loud enough to echo, dismissive enough to sting. Meaningful cinema. Sure, look, not everyone wants to sit through 2 hours of you looking sad and contemplative. Maybe try a comedy. Loosen up a little. Asterisk, the condescension was unmistakable. The implication that Denzel Washington, who had done action, comedy, drama, thrillers, Shakespeare, somehow needed creative advice from a daytime host was so absurd, it left even crew members trading shocked glances. Asterisk, Denzel leaned forward slightly, his posture shifting from casual to deliberate. I've done comedies, he said calmly. I've done action. I've done Shakespeare. I've spent 40 years building a career on excellence and integrity. Asterisk, 40 years, Strahan repeated, mimicking his tone with a smirk. Exactly. 40 years of the same thing. Don't you think it's time to try something new? Or are you just comfortable being predictable? Asterisk, the word hit the air like a toxin. Predictable. It reduced a monumental career, one that shaped culture, inspired actors, and left audiences breathless to a single cheap insult delivered for shock value. The audience fell silent, not out of anticipation, but out of discomfort. Everyone felt the shift. Everyone except the man causing it. Asterisk, Denzel's expression hardened. The facade of polite professionalism beginning to crack just enough to reveal what lay underneath. Not anger, not yet. But certainty, precision. A decision? There is nothing predictable about committing to your craft, Key said. Each word deliberate. Asterisk, but Strahan pushed even harder, misreading the warning as weakness. Come on, Denzel. You take yourself too seriously. Maybe that's why younger audiences don't connect with your work anymore. Asterisk, The insult wasn't subtle this time. It was a direct attack on Denzel's relevance, his legacy, his cultural impact. And Strahan delivered it with the smug confidence of someone convinced he was simply doing his job. Asterisk. Denzel's voice dropped not louder, not sharper, but lower, controlled, dangerous, the kind of quiet that precedes a storm. Younger audiences connect with quality, he said. They're smarter than you give them credit for. Asterisk, are they though? Strahan shot back. Because box office numbers say otherwise. Your last few films didn't exactly light the world on fire, did they? Asterisk, that was the line. The point of no return. Strahan wasn't just being provocative anymore. He was belittling Denzel's recent work, his artistry, his purpose live, on national television. Asterisk. Denzel went completely still, not frozen, not shocked. Still in the way a man becomes when he has made a decision and is preparing to act on it. Box office isn't the only measure of success, he said quietly. Asterisk. Strahan laughed again, a final, smug dismissal. Of course it isn't. That's what everyone says when their movies don't make money. The studio went stone silent. Not the crafted pause of dramatic television, but the stunned silence of people witnessing something they can't believe is actually happening. Crew members exchanged wide-eyed glances. Producers in the control room were almost certainly scrambling for solutions. Even the cameras, though still recording, felt like they'd frozen in disbelief. All of it captured the moment Michael Strahan crossed a line no professional should ever approach. Asterisk. Denzel stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadably, masterclass in controlled restraint. But his eyes were sharp, focused, fully present. He was processing, calculating, deciding. Then he repeated the words slowly, deliberately. My time has passed. It wasn't a question. It was him holding Strahan's insult up to the light and letting everyone hear just how outrageous, how presumptuous, how breathtakingly arrogant it truly was. Asterisk. But Strahan plowed ahead, oblivious to the magnitude of what he'd just said. You had a great run, he continued, smug and self-satisfied. But there's a new generation now. New actors, new stories, new energy. Maybe it's time to step aside and let them have their moment. You've had yours. Asterisk. You've had yours. As if a 40-year legacy of masterful performances, cultural impact, discipline, and artistic excellence expired like milk. As if a lifetime of elevating every project he touched could be dismissed because one television host felt entitled to decide when someone else's era should end. Asterisk. Denzel's hands rested calmly in his lap. He hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't shown anger in any conventional way. But something had changed. A finality settled over him, quiet, resolute shift that anyone paying attention would recognize as decisive. Asterisk. Let me ask you something. Michael, Denzel said, his tone conversational but sharpened with purpose. How long have you been doing this hosting job? Asterisk. Strahan blinked, thrown off rhythm for the first time. I don't know. Several years. Why? Asterisk. Several years, Denzel repeated, giving the phrase the same weight Strahan had used when mocking 40 years of work. And in those several years, have you learned anything about respecting your guests? Asterisk. The question landed like a clean surgical strike. Strahan's smile faltered, the first fracture in his confidence. Whoa, hey, I'm just having a conversation here. Asterisk. No, Denzel said. His voice still calm, but lined with unmistakable steel. You're not having a conversation. You're performing. You're trying to get a reaction, trying to create a moment at my expense. That isn't conversation. That's disrespect. Asterisk. Strahan tried to regain footing, leaning on the same tired defense. Come on, man. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just asking questions. Asterisk. Asking questions. Denzel echoed, turning the words over as if examining shattered glass. Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're trying to tear down someone who has spent their entire life building something meaningful. And for what? Ratings? Clicks. Asterisk. The audience was motionless, every eye glued to this collision unfolding in real time. This wasn't the dramatic explosion Strahan might have hoped for. There was no shouting, no theatrics. Instead, this was something infinitely more powerful: quiet dignity standing its ground against blatant disrespect. Words cutting sharper than anger ever could. Asterisk. Strahan shifted, realizing he had finally gone too far. Look, if I offended you, asterisk, if. Denzel raised an eyebrow, the single most dramatic gesture he had allowed himself. There's no if about it. You invited me here to talk about my work, and instead you've spent the entire time dismissing my career, mocking my choices, and suggesting I'm past my prime. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's just rude. Asterisk. Strahan attempted a laugh, trying to minimize the damage spiraling around him. I think you're taking this a little too personally. Asterisk. How else should I take it? Denzel asked. And this time, the question wasn't rhetorical. It was a demand for accountability. You've made it personal. You've questioned my relevance, my talent, my connection to audiences. And you haven't asked me a single real question about the film I'm here to discuss. Asterisk. Well, we can talk about the film now if you want, Strahan offered, scrambling to regain control of the interview that was slipping through his fingers.